Boundary Break has done pretty well for itself over the last year, but one of the things that I always kind of regret is that the format of the show doesn't allow for brand new discoveries that are made on the show to really get the attention that it deserves. A lot of times I'll see news articles on discoveries made by other people who chose to make one little video about one little discovery, and because of that, the 10 discoveries that you'll see on this list continue to go unnoticed by many people. Well, it's time to finally give them a little bit of spotlight. So here's the top 10 undocumented discoveries made on Boundary Break. Number 10. The bouncing straps in Luigi's Mansion. This was probably the first big discovery that I ever made on the show. In this one little scene at the very start of the game where Luigi opens the door to the mansion, if you take the camera all the way into the back where Luigi came out of the woods, you can actually see a bouncing pair of straps. Now, it's a theory of mine that it belongs to the Poltergust 3000, but why there's even a bouncing animation for this thing, I'll never know. Number 9. The unique wall in the throne room for Super Mario Bros. 3. This one I was incredibly happy about. One of the most classic games of all time, and the show managed to find something that was completely undiscovered up to this point. See, Super Mario Bros. 3 has been gutted to death. It was pretty much a certainty at this point that if you ever found anything in Super Mario Bros. 3, it was likely found by someone else first. But this particular discovery went unnoticed for two reasons. One is that apparently it's made up of a reused asset, borrowing from the tiles used for the end goal box. The other is that no one's ever made a code for this very specific intention. I had to know if there was anything inside that throne room. So with the help of NecoRun, we were able to load Mario into that room, and we also disabled the code that tells the game that the player can't go any further. And what we got as a result is this unused wall left by the game's developers. Number 8. The first look at the cylinder world in Animal Crossing Wild World. Now, in my mind, this one hardly fits on the list, but a lot of people were asking for me to put it on here, just because of the sheer popularity of it in general. A lot of people know that in Wild World, it's pretty much running on a cylinder, or at least it feels like it. No one really knew what it looked like when you zoomed out the camera in Wild World, but as it turns out, as you walk along in town, it actually does wrap around into a cylinder, proving to be one of the most unusual zoom outs we've ever had on the show. Number 7. The Smash Brothers text in the Super Smash Bros. Melee title screen. I kind of look back on this episode and regret the fact that at the start of the episode I nonchalantly just mentioned something that's never really been mentioned before. In the title screen of Super Smash Bros. Melee, if you move the camera through some of the effects and zoom in on these lines over here, you can actually see that it spells out Smash Brothers. It's a detail that I think was meant to be seen by the player, but if you boot up the game yourself and look at it from the standard definition GameCube, it's impossible to read that text, making this an Easter egg that for the longest time could only be seen by the developers themselves. Number 6. The in-game eye for Captain Falcon in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Now, up to this point, it has been documented that the eye exists on Captain Falcon, but everyone speculated that it was an unused asset, and theorized that it was probably meant for battle damage that was never used in the game. However, on Boundary Break, it was first discovered that the eye actually exists while you're playing the game, and at any given time, if you were able to manipulate the camera in the correct way, you could see the eyeball. And then later in a remake episode, it was later discovered that that eyeball is actually the same eyeball that belongs to Solid Snake. Though, even if you were able to notice the eyeball while playing in-game, it would be near impossible to make that connection because of how visible the game makes it. Number 5. The Beta Corpse in Uncharted Drake's Fortune. This is probably one of the most underlooked discoveries made on the show because of how unpopular the episode actually was. For some reason, not a lot of people were interested in an Uncharted episode, but for the smaller group of people that were willing to watch it, they got the very first look of the Beta Corpse used in the game. See, originally there was a corpse used for the game that was actually shown in behind-the-scenes footage from the developers. However, in the final build of the game, they went with something completely different. But after that cutscene is over, you can't manipulate the camera in a way to see the corpse again while playing in-game. However, if we override the camera controls and take a look at the corpse ourselves, you can see that the developers actually left behind that corpse used in the footage. Number 4. The unique sound effect in Magicant for Earthbound. There was actually a ton of interesting facts found for that episode, but probably the most fitting for a website like the Cutting Room Floor is an unused sound effect used in Magicant. If you walk on these tiles in particular, which the player has no access to at any point in the game, you can actually hear a completely different sound effect than what's used in any other part of the game. Number 3. Black Klungo in Banjo-Tooie. Moving the camera around during the opening cutscene for Banjo-Tooie was a trip. There was a lot of assets stored off to the side, waiting to be queued in particular scenes. But one thing that was never used and could stand to have an explanation is this completely black Klungo that's stored off to the side completely off camera. Now, like I said, it's completely normal to have character models stored off to the side, but in this particular case, the camera's already pointed at Klungo, and a different version of him is never used. In fact, this black Klungo starts moving on his own, as if to share a relic of the program movement path that he was originally supposed to have. of. Number 2, the helicopter cockpit in Yooka-Laylee. This particular discovery is incredibly unique in 2 ways. One is that it was first discovered on Boundary Break, but 2, it also has an explanation from the developers themselves. In the Yooka-Laylee episode of Boundary Break, I actually had cooperation from Team 17 and Playtonic themselves, and in it they explain this cockpit that can normally never be seen by the player. And the reason why it exists there in the first place is that originally there was supposed to be escort missions for the various characters, but because that feature was never used, they didn't want to show off an empty cockpit, and so instead of changing the model altogether, they just made the glass on the windshield completely tinted. And number 1, the Sailor Moon manga and Punch-Out for Wii. This particular discovery is what motivated me most to make this list. It's amazing to me that something that has nothing to do with Nintendo is hidden away in a Nintendo-produced game. In Punch-Out for Wii, in between rounds, Piston Hondo will be reading a nondescript book without a title or binder that tells you the title. But if we were to take the camera onto the other side of the book, it's revealed that these are actual panels used in the Sailor Moon manga, which I found to be absolutely incredible. But due to the popularity of the game and being hidden inside of the episode itself, this particular discovery was never written about on any website of any kind. And there you have it, my top 10 undocumented discoveries made in Boundary Break. Now you might notice that some of these are already on the cutting room floor now, but just keep in mind that when this was published in the video, none of this information existed on any website. So if you want to be the first to see future discoveries, make sure you lock yourself in and watch Boundary Break, airing every single week here on YouTube. And if you want to see if your favorite game has already been covered, I'll leave a link to the playlist down below. We got something for all kinds of gamers, so take a look, and I hope to see you next episode.